But not least, let's continue with the last speaker of this conference, Dr. Antonis Kalogerakis. He is head of the Institute of Theology and Ecology at the Orthodox Academy of Crete, and he is also a EU Climate Pact ambassador. He is going to talk about the EU Climate Pact and the food policy and the strategy and vision of the EU, ensuring food security and sustainability. Dear Antonis, you have the floor for 20 minutes.
Nikos, thank you. I will try not to throw away my presentation, as Mr. Theodoris said before. All this entire discussion we've been having today is rather experiential, and I feel it close to my heart. I also have the same experience, dear Theodoris, of my grandmother to baking the bread, passengers stopping by and offering them food. This is why we organized a project with a double aim to allow children to go back outside on the countryside with their grandmothers and grandfathers and find out the herbs of our land, of the Cretan land. We don't know them, but their grandmothers and their grandfathers do. So we want to bring the two generations closer, and it was a hugely successful project. The children went out with their grandparents, they cooked the herbs, and we all discussed how these herbs helped us survive through many wars. We survived thanks to these herbs. So we have the blessing of the church, which uses nature inside its rituals. We have to provide a different perspective and allow people to connect to each other. I will now talk a little bit about Carla, and then I will go to my presentation. It is the reason why many years ago, at the end of the 90s, when I started studying environmental engineering, and I did that because I didn't like these crimes that were happening in nature, and I don't want this plastic bottle in front of me. This is why I studied environmental engineering, to stop these crimes against nature, because indeed what happened with Carla was a crime, and this crime persists. And I'm happy because there are people such as Theodoris and other people that love the environment. And I do know that the Academy contributes to that. It's time to rethink things over. Why did nature opted for that? Why do we want to completely reverse that? If another Daniel comes, what happens? We need to find answers. It's good to be listening to scientists in order to answer your question. It's good to be listening to scientists. Of course, mistakes will be made, but we use scientific data in order to pay our respects to nature, the respect and reverence to creation that is taught by our church. This is why we need science. Scientists won't make political decisions, but we will use science as a tool, the necessary tool. And then I will turn to English for the rest of my presentation, but so far in Greek, I want to say that we want to use science as a tool that will allow us to give answers and solutions. This bottle of water, is it local? Is it a local product? No, it's not. So this bottle of water, and I always start my presentations like that, this bottle of water is probably from Saudi Arabia. And why is that? Because it's from plastic, and plastic is created from oil, and oil comes from Saudi Arabia. Anyway, I am in a fight against plastic. We have to be using more and more our water, even if we have to use filters and other equipment. Our friend Chris has his own bottle. And the most important thing in these meetings, Nikos, is this, and you're very successful in this, is to make Volos a point of reference. All of us that care for the environment come here and form a very warm-hearted team. And we feel this warmth here. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Ekavi, Chris, Bishop Antonios. So this team is able to do something that will go further beyond Volos, and it is worth keep doing that. And I know that it's not easy. Anyway, moving on to my presentation, because you will see how everything is linked at the end of the day.
In order to be, I think, better for also the translators and also for the English-speaking people, English-speaking people of our academy. So, το άλλο μικρόφωνο που παίζει λίγα πιο δυνατά. Ωραία. Είχα την τιμή από το Γενάρη να είμαι πρέσβης from January. I had the honor to be a EU Climate Pact ambassador. So we work close the work that has to do about climate crisis and the European Union. And also I'm head of the Institute of Theology and Ecology, which is a department at the Orthodox Academy of Crete. I will start if this thing works. If it's not... Όχι, θα παίξει. Hopefully. If not, το άλλο. Έχει βγάλει σφάλματα εδώ. Okay. So I will start with the phrase of Father John Chrysavgis, who has been working a lot as the advisor of the Ecumenical Patriarchate for many years. It's an article that it was published in Kathimerini. Food is a prominent factor in ecological exploitation. This article had to do with the climate crisis and a book that is related and the overpopulation of the earth. But we have to keep in mind in this exploitation that food has a dominant role. If I try to speak a bit more about it, the way that we produce and consume food contributes significantly to the degradation of the natural and social environment. We should not forget that food is a human right. It has an ethical dimension that has to do with justice and waste, in which I will discuss a bit more. The deforestation, we lose forests, overfishing, use of pesticides and fertilizers. And I have to discuss, I do remember I have to make a comment on the Roundup. When I had the honor to be advisor of the Greek Parliament, we had the issue with lebicide, one more pesticide. So we'll try through the EU and through the Greek Parliament to stop the lebicide in the European Union and especially in Greece. It was not an easy way to do so, but we worked on it. So we can use policy, science together to do things to change, to make this so tremendous change. So use of pesticides and fertilizers, greenhouse gas emissions, transport, water overuse for irrigation. And we should never forget the strong connection between the food and the water and how the justice and waste is connected. That's why I have brought here in Volos, I might not have brought sfakiani pita to you, but I have brought this cup. As a Cretan, I had to say that maybe, who knows, it comes from the Minoan civilization. But most probably, it's an invention of Pythagoras. And what's the idea? What's the idea? What's so special about it? Let me do this experiment. Okay. I have added some water, so everything is fine. You see the cup, perfect. We have the water. We can share the water. If it is wine, it will be even better. We don't say about tsikoudia. It's huge. It's your chipura. So we can share, we can have it. But if we add excess water, then we're losing everything. That's the idea. And this thing is centuries and centuries and centuries. That's the idea of everything. And when we have these presentations, especially with young people, it's very important to show them, to understand why we are discussing about this thing about water overuse, or we're discussing about the waste of food nowadays. If it's too much, we're going to lose everything. And this also includes climate crisis, justice and waste in a practical way with this cup of Pythagoras. Just to give you some data, I'm a scientist, sorry, I have to. The rice, water needs for food production, kilograms of water per kilograms of food. So in order to have 1 kilo of rice, we have to spend 1,900 to 4,000, depending on where you are, which part of Earth, of water. Wheat, again, excessive numbers. Potato, chicken, I will stop to the beef, 15,000. For 1 kilo of beef, we need 15,000 to 70,000 kilos of water. That's the data that I have from published from ResearchGate. Usually in my presentations, I put the sources in order to show you where you can find more data if you would like. So you can understand, if you would just drink a cup of a coffee, do you think that it just needs 1 cup of water to produce it? No. No. Add also the transport. Add also from whatever place on Earth it is coming, the pollution. So we're starting to build on it. About the waste, there's a lot of studies that had to do with the waste. Where do actually lose food? During production, harvest, during processing and packaging, during storage, during transport and distribution. The food waste, on the other hand, we can lose it in stores. If you go and buy some vegetables, some vegetables are not that so beautiful, may I say, yeah? And the stores, at the end of the day, they will throw them away. That's a waste. In food services, hotels, cafe, restaurants, caterings, and at home, at our homes. Let's ask a bit ourselves. How do we waste the food? This data comes from the EU. Primary production with the waste from the primary production is about 8%. If we go to processing and manufacturing, 19%. If we go to retail and distribution, 8% again. Restaurants, food services, 11%. I have some comments for that if you want to ask me later. And the biggest one is our households. That's the biggest issue regarding the waste. So it's either the woman or the man who is cooking. But at the end of the day, we have to rethink about the waste at our homes. This is a major issue. It's 132 kilos per capita. It's huge, 132 kilos. And on top of the waste, there is another issue that came in our life, climate crisis. 2024 was the warmest year both for Europe and globally. Across the continent, people experienced dramatic and contrasting climate conditions. While the East faced dry and extreme heat, the West endured heavy rainfall and flooding. How can the poor farmer work under these conditions, these extreme conditions? He is losing his production. He is destroyed. And the EU is coming to give some money to support. Yeah. Let's go what the EU is doing regarding all these situations that we have discussed. The EU has started working on the European Climate Pact, in which I'm ambassador. You see the logos there. It's a flagship initiative of the European Green Deal. What it says, in short, that we have to neutralize our emissions, not to have any emissions at the end of the day, but it's impossible. So we reduce the emissions that we produce. And at the same time, if we cannot go to zero, we have to find ways to balance this kind of emissions by adding or by having more trees, for instance. That's maybe a reason, a good way to do so. And if we go to the specific food policy, which is the idea here, the farm to fork, we start with sustainable food production, we go to sustainable food processing and distribution, go to sustainable food consumption, and also to food loss and waste prevention. So we're trying to think a bit of holistic way. And that's the idea behind this policy, to work at least in theory, to work in a holistic way, this circular economy way, from farm to fork, in order to reduce the waste and to bring to this bridging of environment, society, and economy to make it work in practice. And on top of the climate crisis, we have the war crisis too, the Russians' invasion of Ukraine. And the point is that Ukraine was a leading grain exporter, world's largest exporter of sunflower oil, for instance. They had in 2021, before the war, almost from the cereals, about $20 billion income because of their production. Now what? And most of the products that they have produced, they were coming to countries of Africa. Not the EU was not the major importer of goods from Ukraine. But still, what happened to these people? They had to find different ways. At the end of the day, reduced grain exports leads to higher food prices. A huge issue. So we have to see that this war has also caused a number of other cases all over the world. And then we go to the strategic EU responses. So we have climate crisis, we have the war crisis, and then what is the next crisis? Coming from the US, I'm afraid, we have discussed it with Fran a lot. Yesterday, the news, there are threats about the 50% extra tariffs. Thank you so much. And Europe is working on this nice logo, Enjoy. It's from Europe, the Made in the EU logo, the Made in EU idea. When Nikos had made me the proposal to come here, the data that we had, the situation was completely different. Now we have 3 recent developments, policy developments from EU. One has come in February, Vision for Agriculture and Food. We had in April the 4th report on the state of food security in the EU. And a few days ago, we have a revision of the common agricultural policy, the κοινή αγροτική πολιτική that we know for many years here in Greece. It's a completely renovation of story about how the EU is trying to find ways to adopt, to get over these 3 crises that we have discussed. And I do agree that we have issues with the EU that Thodoris has mentioned regarding the very small, if I want to have, for instance, a few animals for me, for the production for me, here there are issues on this kind of policy, and I have to point that out. But in general terms, the idea, if we see very shortly, one by one, this policy about the vision for agriculture and food, it has to do with research, innovation, and digitalization in order to engage farmers, scientists, and citizens to co-design future food systems. What all these things mean? That EU actually is afraid, and we're trying to find ways by using the science as a tool to get over all these issues. From all these numbers about the added value and the jobs that have to do with agriculture, this is very important. From all the farmers, only 12% are under 40 years old. What future we're going to have, and how we're discussing about AI to make it to make our agriculture more modern, may I say, or more specific, all this kind of precision agriculture, as it is called, agroecology, or regenerative agriculture, or organic farming, if you don't have young people to put their energy, to put their ideas on this kind of work. Here is a photo from our academy. Back in 2019, we have called scientists from China that came at that period to discuss about the drones at that time, and how to use the drones in local for local farmers, especially to have some precision in their agriculture. It's also, this discussion was about watering some places, especially in Crete, which is not easy to water, and the drone could give some solutions. So these ideas about connecting modern technology and farming could have a real result in everyday life. And we discussing here, dear Fran, about the Academy of Olive. This is how we're telling it, together with local farmers, about to re-educate them and to find ways to put these ideas for technology or cutting pesticides, cutting fertilizers in their everyday life to do something more productive in their own piece of land that they have. Also, the fourth report on the state of food security in the EU. High input costs, mostly it's the first raw materials that our farmers are using, and market concentration. Only a few companies gather and concentrate the whole market, which is also an issue. The climate risks, which is included in this report, as well as I have to say that compared to previous assessments, the EU food supply and food security are now perceived to be in a riskier state. It's the fact that I have told you. EU actually were in a transition period. Everything is under question, and we're wondering what will be the next step under this not stable situation that we're experiencing. EU actions is trying at least to address the farmers' concerns, simplifying procedures. This paperwork is extremely crazy, facilitating access to finance and investment support, especially for young and smaller farmers. EU aims to prevent over-dependence on external food sources, the idea of made in EU, made in Europe, better recognition of organic farming, which is important too, and providing support to farmers by introducing crisis payments. And I will end up my presentation, I hope that I am on time, hopefully, with two cases. And I'm very glad that afterwards we are going to a monastery here of Τιμίους του Προδρόμου, το λέω σωστά, ναι. And we are going to see how this tradition of centuries is a message from our monasteries, of our churches, for our everyday lives too. We have an excellent example also from the monastery of Χρυσοπηγή back to Chania. Maybe it's worth to check it also at the web. And I really love this slide is from the 1745. If you compare, it's more or less the same. This respect to the environment in a practical, real-life way. And that's the idea. That's the idea that we have to move. And they are producing a number of products, but they don't stay on that. Of course, they are certified organic farming, no pesticides, not at all. They have also environmental standard inside the monastery to disseminate their practices, to bring the young generation closer to the nature. So that's the idea that they have learned through the tradition of centuries, through the Holy Bible, by applying its methods nowadays in their work. And again, put the new generation inside these kind of ideas. That is how we're going to continue working on clean and good products. And the second good practice, and I'm really happy with the products that I have seen during the coffee break. Back in Chania, we have also a very nice cooperative, which is a cooperative that started back in 1996. I'm happy to be a member of them. What was the vision? Back in 1996, it's almost 30 years ago that they have started. The vision was very simple. How we're going to use a healthy diet without pills, that was the idea back then, without pesticides, and keep the prices low. Bring the customer and the producer at the same table. And that's the idea. It worked perfectly. It was a vision, very difficult at the beginning, but the local community of Chania supported this idea. And you see nowadays they have started from a really small store. This is 30 years ago, this photo. And now we have actually two. They have two stores nowadays. Has two stores with products directly local, directly from the producers. And that's the idea that we have to work more and more and more. And of course, they don't stop on that. They move a step forward. Again, going to schools, include social and cultural activities with the local society to cultivate these ideas, to continue these ideas by working with the people of the society. So, as a conclusion, the vision for the future has to do with EU is working on climate resilience and stability regarding food. They are trying, at least, with these new policy tools that I have tried to explain to you. A collective effort is needed across policy, science, and society, so to bring them all together. Use the science as a tool to have some real-life good results in order to build fair, secure, and green food systems for all, long-term resilience, in order to work on equity, cooperation, and solidarity. That's the idea. As we have seen, and I'm happy that I have seen also these things in these initiatives here in Volos, of bringing the people of church, I believe a lot, as we have discussed with Nikos about the energy communities. It's not an easy thing to do, for sure. There are policy issues that they are not supporting the ideas of energy communities. But the point of working with the parish, the people around the church, to give some good paradigms of everyday life and try to make in these modern issues the power of the church to be heard louder to the next generations can have an effect. And we have to work together, the academies, the research institutes, the people around the world deeper on this kind of issues. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalogerakis, for his wonderful presentation, having given us a sense from Crete, an image from Crete, but also an image of what has been happening in the EU, on an EU policy level, and the relationship with food. All those issues are interlinked, and we need a holistic approach. Do we have any Questions or comments? First, His Eminence.
Clarify about the food waste, the chart, the graph that you showed. When you showed 132 kilograms per capita, was that for all forms of food waste or just households? That one. Yeah, per capita, but for all of the categories.
Yes, it's the sum up
of all the categories.
Yes, the sum up, yes.
Yeah, okay.
About the half of it.
So 60 something in homes.
In the homes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. That's what I wanted to. Yeah.
That's
Okay,
why we
thank you.
have to focus on homes.
Ο κύριος Δρούγιας πρώτα και μετά ο καθηγητής Δέμος.
Drougias and then Professor.
Ο κύριος Δρούγιας, κάτι τελευταίος. Μου είπε να το δώσω. Μετά.
Όλα θα τα απαντήσουμε.
Αγαπητέ Αντώνη,
Antonis, I will use your own expression. You talked about artificial intelligence. This is something that we should really focus on because we are afraid we're not maybe ready yet to introduce it into our food. There are real dangers. Maybe science could allow us to approach it with a more with a better approach. I'm talking about farming of safety, not about precision farming. We have 50 or 60 deaths in Greece every year from people that work in the farming sector. Some tractors may not be really safe, and we keep losing farmers. We have informed everyone, the ministries, but they don't listen to us. You mentioned also the drones. Drones might be helpful. It is forbidden institutionally. I cannot fly a drone. I can do it only legally. I can buy a drone and then I spray, and I am illegal. How can we talk about farming with drone when the drone is illegal and you allow the industry to sell it? And I'm really happy that you come from Chania because 15 days ago, I had the chance to visit the municipality of Apokoronos, and I realized that in Crete, you have understood the right training and mentality of what to do with food. We are part of a network, and we try to protect the rivers. The rivers are a source of life and a source of food, of sustenance. Klidiaris, the river Klidiaris. And you try to use the river mill, the water mill, and then I saw that you have some soft types of tourism. And one of the best restaurants was there by the river, and we had an excellent meal. So eating and food is related to all those things that you have mentioned. So now we should I'm sorry that I haven't met you back then because I wanted to go to that event, but I had prior commitments and I couldn't be there. But I'm sure that it was meant for us to meet in Volos and not in Chania. I agree with everything that you have said. It is true that there is no legislation for drones yet. They are not allowed, and especially for spraying, they are strictly prohibited. You cannot use them. Maybe it's for the best. I don't know. Because the way that they are used, the agrochemical products, in a mass way in Crete, but also in Greece, all around Greece, I would like to see them used in a more limited way. And I'm sure that we will have an EU legislation that will restrict, because if we keep using Roundup and those pesticides, of course, we will have much more problems. Now, when it comes to AI, there are specific applications. We're talking about sensors, and there are scientific approaches where by introducing specific sensors, you get to know some soil characteristics at that specific time moment, and then we can spray water exactly the right time so we don't waste water or some nutrients are lacking from the soil. This is then the sensor allows you what is missing. And of course, I agree with you that AI also is not always the best solution, but when it comes to real problems, it is also yet another tool. It is up to us how are we going to use it. You also mentioned the old mill, the old water mill. I cannot say that we are doing everything right in Crete. We are far from it, but we try to take care of our wetlands. How can we combine the wetlands with the younger generation? I am really happy that we can discuss about those issues, and we should work together, bringing the regions together, Thessaly and Crete, in order to come up with ideas. And of course, your job and your articles and your work will help us let's say, disseminate or sow seeds of concern in the society. We can try to disseminate our ideas, and I invite everyone to think in a different way. A last question, Professor Van der Broek.
Thank you so much for a very inspiring contribution, showing all these recent initiatives coming also from the European Union. Yet I'm wondering whether you might be a bit too optimistic here. So the Green Deal was a very ambitious initiative indeed. It was led by the former commissioner, the Dutch commissioner Frans Timmermans. But then there were new elections, and the composition of the European Parliament changed to quite some extent. And then this Green Deal was watered down, and the ambition to really invest money in combating climate change was weighed against other goals which the European Union had set. So aren't you afraid that what is being done, even by the European Union, may be too late and too little?
Exactly at the core of the problem. Thank you so much, dear professor, for your point. Yes, it is true. We're going to have issues. We see that in US, for instance, there is no such thing anymore concerning the environment. So the big question is what the EU will do now. And it is a discussion inside the European Union. Will we continue to work on climate issues? Will we continue to work on Green Deal? Or we say that as the US has done, and now, as we all know that investing in the environment is something very expensive. We have to move. That's our concern, a big concern for us to make some more weapons to follow the US. Huh? We have mentioned about the Ukraine. What will happen there? Do we have to produce more weapons in order to support the Ukraine? So who needs the Green Deal? Huge questions. Answers. So what we can do as communities now, that's our point, and through the Climate Pact as ambassador, this is our discussions that now we have also to face this reality by saying that, no, we have to work on the environment, we have to continue. And the case that we have at the other part of the ocean, that they have neglected completely the issues of environment, we have to face it and stand up and say, no, the EU has to be the good paradigm, has to innovate in the issues of environment. Otherwise, it's a huge global issue. The IPCC is there. The data from NASA, if you get into their site regarding the climate change, the real-time data that they put regarding the CO2 emissions, regarding the temperature of Earth are there. Nothing is going to change of this scientific data because they have another president in the US. So the EU has to stand up. Maybe it's the time of the citizens to work through the communities of EU stronger. And I don't know if we are going to have a result or not, but for sure we have to do something.
Ευχαριστούμε, Αντώνη. Λοιπόν,